Hello, America. Welcome to Common Sense. I'm Wendy Bell. Well, the reckoning for the U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID, is finally upon us. One of America's least understood, but dirtiest and costliest foreign policy tools masquerades around the world as this international do-gooder, doing all the important fuzzy feeling stuff, allegedly, on behalf of the United States. But in reality, as RFK Jr. has told us, USAID is a well-known CIA front that has meddled in dozens of foreign elections and has forced regime change in countries around the world. Oh, and the very best part of all, we're paying for it with a $50 billion budget. Like you'd think there'd be receipts, plans, progress, something. But there isn't. There's stonewalling and slow walking and silence and now panic, all under this guise of international charity, but it is not. We fund it. USAID answers to us, and that is starting to happen, right? USAID's Washington headquarters went into lockdown. Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency wasn't allowed entry. Then Donald Trump shut it all down. Promises made, promises kept. Let's bring in our panel of top talk radio hosts from across America. Chris Arps co-hosts the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show on News Talk St. Louis, 101.9 and 94.1 FM. Andrea Kaye hosts the Andrea Kaye Show on The Answer San Diego, 96.1 FM and AM 1170. And Rich Valdez hosts Rich Valdez America at Night on Westwood One out of New York. Welcome back to all of you guys. All right, so let's get to it. Let's presume we know nothing about USAID, right? We're living under a rock somewhere. We're just hearing about this. When Chuck Schumer stands up in the Senate and he says this about the Department of Government Efficiency wanting to see the books, I mean, shouldn't we all be suspicious? Take a listen.
If DOGE attacks USAID today, then you can be sure they'll move on to another target tomorrow. Who knows? Maybe it'll be the Postal Service or the IRS or even the Social Security Administration. They could be next.
I'd be okay with that. I mean, Chris, the Democrats really don't want any oversight of USAID. So what does that tell us?
They don't. Look, Elon Musk and DOGE are doing exactly what President Trump tasked them to do, and that is to root out waste and corruption in our government. We're learning that taxpayer dollars were used overseas to pay for transgender operas in countries that most people couldn't point out on a map. And as a person who is in the media, what has been particularly disturbing to me is that USAID has paid out $8 million to the political website Politico over the last few years. And under one of those line items was for IT services. Why is the federal government paying Politico for IT services? I think it's a correct thing to do, that this needs to be reined in. It has become a slush fund for progressive bureaucrats and liberals, and I think it's a good thing that now Secretary of State Rubio is now temporarily in charge of it.
Yes, that is absolutely correct. I think you're right about that. And Andrea, you know, Congressman Wesley Hunt tweeted this out. He said, USAID, like a child with your credit card. Here's what you funded. $20 million for a Sesame Street in Iraq, $56 million to boost tourism in Egypt and Tunisia, $40 million to build schools in Jordan. That is how USAID was spending some of the $50 billion budget. But Andrea, where's the money to rebuild Asheville or Lahaina or East Palestine or the Palisades or anything that might benefit us?
Absolutely great question. You know, when you look at the hysteria, the histrionics, the meltdowns that these Democrats have had, and even if you believe for a moment that the $40 billion that has been the budget of USAID, and by the way, $1 billion of it is yet to be determined where that money is gone. Let's say you buy into the mission of it about international development. Is that really going to help the families? 75,000 homes in North Carolina? 10,000, hundreds of thousands of people. I don't even know the number displaced now in North Carolina. Some of them that were kicked out into the freezing cold. Where has been the hysteria? The mandate for Trump was, and for this country, was a MAGA mandate to put America first, to make America great again. And if the Democrats think that the selling pitch to the American people is we're supposed to be hysterical over money, less money going abroad, they picked the wrong pitch people for this.
Right. No, you're right about that. And you know what, Rich, I want you to hear, to Andrea's point, Listen to the left-wing media meltdown over Trump shutting this thing down so it can be rolled under Marco Rubio at the Department of State. As one of his first acts of Secretary of State, listen to Van Jones. Oh my gosh.
There are people right now who have HIV who are alive only because the United States is making sure of that. Donald Trump says, we don't care. You go die. That's the message from the United States government. It is the wrong message to be sending.
What?
Wendy,
CNN says
the
President
Democrats,
Trump is telling the rest of the world to die? Like, what?
the Democrats can't get out of their own way by making stuff up. It's clear to me, and I think clear to anybody who's watching, that they're very sorry that they got caught, but they're not sorry that this has happened, right? And blaming Elon Musk for accessing Treasury data or using a private laptop or whatever the story was, all of that stuff is nothing but a smokescreen to try and cover up their misdeeds. I think it's incredible that they're trying to shoot the messenger. They're trying to hang him. They're trying to crucify him. I don't think it's going to work. I think the American people are smarter. And Van Jones, come on. I think he could do better than that.
I know. I love looking at him, but I don't like listening to him. I'm like, dude, shut it. Stop. Okay, so Chris, Secretary, I know, did I say that out loud? I'm sorry. Secretary of State
I'm in
Marco
agreement
Rubio.
with you on that one, Wendy.
Marco Rubio said this about his experience with USAID when he was a senator. Listen.
My frustration with USAID goes back to my time in Congress. It's a completely unresponsive agency. It's supposed to respond to policy directives of the State Department, and it refuses to do so. So the functions of USAID, there are a lot of functions of USAID that are going to continue, that are going to be part of American foreign policy, but it has to be aligned with American foreign policy.
Yeah, Chris, Democrats apparently disagree with all of that Marco Rubio just said.
You know, USAID was originally an agency within the State Department, and over many years, it has become a rogue agency where they are funding programs and things that most American people would not be in favor of. So as I said before, I'm glad that this agency is back under the State Department's rule. And one thing, too, that I want to clear up, you know, the Democrats are crying bloody murder, of course, but programs dealing with malaria and AIDS around the world, those programs haven't been cut. It's the programs and waste that we talked about earlier that are being cut.
It's a good, thank you for that. You know, 47 grand for transgender opera in Colombia, 32,000 for a transgender comic book in Peru, $2 million for sex changes and LGBT activism in Guatemala, like funding vaginoplasties in Central America, Andrea, full stop, should not be a policy goal of any U.S. agency.
No, absolutely not. Look, whether it's this is, as one of our panelists said earlier, this has become nothing but a slush fund for globalism around the world. It's about trying to impart cultural Marxism in the form of the alphabet mafia all around the world. But it's even more disturbing than that, guys, because we also know that 38,000 meals were provided for al-Qaeda terrorists in Syria. So this is also about, as RFK Jr. had mentioned, this is also about a CIA front group where we have been funneling money for regime changes around the world that has created more instability and advanced the cause of Islamic terrorism, as well as advanced the causes. Let's not forget, as we talk about the media being funded, what was Politico doing with the funds? They were funding the impeachment of a free and fairly elected President Trump while crying about insurrection.
Yes, I agree. I agree with that. And you know who's cool about all this is Rich Valdez, who doesn't seem surprised by any of this. Rich, are you jaded or just smarter than I am?
Neither one. Probably more jaded than anything. You know, for years, I remember being a young guy, and I'm still relatively young, but I remember being a young guy and hearing about foreign policy and foreign aid. And I thought, why on earth would we give so much money to these other countries? And I always thought, this sounds like a bribe. And that's really what it is, right? We either threaten them with military force or we bribe them. Those are the only two deals that we really have, which is why I really appreciate Trump and his approach, because he's actually making deals, like deals where people can make money and you can have business.
Right.
What we've been doing doesn't work. I agree. If you look at the Ukraine stuff, right? It was 2017, 2018. Somebody came to me and said, USAID is funding stuff in Ukraine under President Joe Biden, who at the time, Vice President Joe Biden, who at the time was the, the Ukraine czar or whatever they appointed him as the point person for Ukraine after the Maidan Square and all that. And the amount of money was surreal.
It's crazy.
We saw it ended up getting funneled to Hunter Biden through Burisma. That is a mess. It's continued to be a mess. I'm so grateful that this is being exposed. And everybody that's seeing this, I'm sure they're very happy to see it. And they're probably, those that didn't know, they're surprised.
More.
Thank God for it.
I agree. All right, guys, don't go anywhere. If you did not trust the media to cover your presidency or your administration fairly, what would you do? Well, if you were Donald Trump, you'd just go around the news. This new administration's new way to keep us informed and how you can get in on it if you're not in on the loop. Next on Common Sense.